Well, here's hoping I cut things the right way so this is the exact point where I left off last time. A little hard to tell given how many times I go back and forth from that Pokemon Center, plus just how many Ghastlies we run into. It's the sort of thing that makes it hard to keep track when you're being extra careful with the footage. Yeah, it just blurs together, regardless of how you try to look at it. Well, this feels familiar. Is that because I'm looking at the exact same footage again, or because Taki just gets unlucky against these Ghastlies? And can we at least get a Haunter or two, for the sake of giving us something fresh to look at around here? Part of me wants to be annoyed that the critical health sound effect completely cuts off the Dragon Rage sound effects. The other can't help wondering why the designers of Pokemon decided to have a sound effect for Pokemon having critical health in this game anyway. I mean, I think we would notice the low number and the little red spot there on the bar. Huh. Well, that'll actually save us some time we might have used to run all the way back to the Pokemon Center. Though it's not helped by the fact that we can still get random encounters when walking over the healing space. Some odd game design decisions around here. Well, at least the Pokedex entry in the first game doesn't mention the idea of Cubone wearing its mother's skull. I think plenty of people over the years have already mentioned how that should be impossible unless the entire line of Pokemon is being hunted to extinction for some reason, and there's always half the population in the next generation. I'm not even entirely sure why I decided to pick the name Lucy as a throwaway name for Cubone. It's not like it really matters all that much. Especially since, well, I'm sending them just to the box to stay there. There are just so many orphan characters in a lot of fiction that I can't even call it a defining characteristic at this point. Hell, it probably says something that whenever I hear about a character being an orphan in a story, I just yawn even as the story tries to describe how harsh life was for that particular orphan. If anything, I've been conditioned through stories both foreign and domestic to see a ghost of the Grim Reaper whenever the parent of a main character shows up. Especially in stories where the main character is under 20, which is quite a large number of them. Now, that's not me saying that characters that are orphans bore me, just that the orphan origin thing does not feel all that special in storytelling by any means. It kind of feels like something that should at best be occasionally referenced, like, oh, I happen to have lived in that town we're about to go to, or other quick background things. Unless, of course, they do something special with the whole hero being an orphan thing, like the Naruto series does. But, that doesn't happen often enough. Finally, a trainer with a Haunter. And we also saw a Wild Haunter in this same clip, sure. We're still dealing with a poison ghost that we can't touch with most of our moves, but at least it's something different to look at in the hostile corner of the screen. Apparently it goes down just as fast as a Ghastly would have anyway. I suppose it makes sense that ghosts aren't known for being especially durable. Lady, considering how many other people in this tower have been possessed, I have the distinct feeling it's because of your training. Seriously, someone get the Chandler Academy on the phone, because they either need to get back there for remedial lessons, or that school needs to be completely shut down. Since we never see any Chandlers in later games, they're all replaced by mediums. It's pretty easy to imagine they also realize the problem of priestesses meant to deal with ghosts being possessed in the main location that ghosts show up. Well, good thing Takanabori leveled up. Until he gets Surf, he's absurdly unsuitable to send against ghosts. Granted, not as bad as sending out Kohaku, but still, not a great matchup. Yeah, you and everyone else who isn't hanging around the first and second floor. Now, if only it felt special for us to take down someone who's been possessed in this game. Another rare Haunter sighting. My eyes appreciate it. Granted, my eyes would appreciate it more if every fight wasn't in some nondescript white void, but still. It's not like it would have looked all that great for us to see a massive Gyarados fighting inside this part of the Grave Tower, if we could actually see him accidentally knocking over grainstones as he writhed in place or smacked his head up on the ceiling or crap like that. If anything, the lack of detail for the battles helped this game to some degree, especially in this environment. Hell, just how many battles in this game series would have fallen apart if we could actually see the logistics of how the various Pokemon fit in their environment? Because while I can buy Pokemon gyms being built with larger Pokemon in mind, and it's not too tough to imagine enough open space outdoors for that sort of thing, indoor environments like this tower and the rocket base, I don't care if they're structurally sound enough for the big boys. It's gonna get cramped in a hurry. Of course, now I can't help but groaning that the battlegrounds and the backgrounds in Sword and Shield felt so lazily done. Just like the fight animations. I really need to find ways to avoid bitching about the 8th generation proving so utterly underwhelming, despite having so many expectations and so much extra hype put behind it. Especially when we are still in the 1st generation, and frankly, so many of the things that I complain about the 8th generation were technically in worse shape back in this generation when it all started. But the 1st generation was the first, when they didn't know what they were really going for, or they hadn't changed too much of the, Well, granted, they haven't changed all that much of the formula since the first days, but still, there were changes. It was made on far more limiting hardware, and they had to struggle to fit everything into the little cartridge in what had to be a very stressful bit of coding where I can fully forgive all the various quirks and flaws, some of which were fixed with the 2nd generation, and others you had to wait for the 3rd generation for things to get all smoothed out. It had style and heart that could be felt to a degree decades later. Style and heart that they have blatantly tried to weaponize for an absurd number of years after Red, Blue, and even their minor update Yellow have become such far-back memories. There are plenty of players who don't even know what a Game Boy Advance looks like, much less have held an original Game Boy or Game Boy Color. So, of course, when that part of the audience sees just how basic things were at the start, they of course get confused why the older players are so pissed when things have actually moved forward to a degree since the mid-90s. It's just so hard to explain to people that you expect better from the most proper intellectual property on the planet at this point, that had all the resources, all the opportunities to grow more over all these decades. At least without coming across as a crazy, constantly bitching old man or woman. Thankfully, I'm the kind of old man who can enjoy even the things that I complain about. I've had a lot of practice over the years after all. Thank you, Marbleback. I was kind of worried we'd take another casualty there. Let's see if you can pull off another one-shot. Well, at least we landed a hit despite the confusion. Speaking of confusion, I can't help noticing that unlike every other time we've run into trainers with multiple Pokemon, all three of them seem to be the same level as the other trainers. And the wild Pokemon in here. Have I mentioned that sort of thing makes it hard to tell if we're actually making progress? I know from a technical standpoint that we're not dealing with an endless staircase. And even if we were, this is just the kind of environment that kind of thing would make sense in. It doesn't change the fact that this climb is feeling more like a chore than something especially awesome for us. And I really remembered it being more awesome for some reason. Right, didn't even get a trainer battle when I'm heading back to the Healing Square. Not all that much of a surprise since the trainers and the wild Pokemon are essentially the same level of challenge around here for some reason. Still kind of annoying. Hell, how do I not remember how annoying caves were and Lavender Tower is? Hell, I spent a good amount of time in this playthrough looking forward to the Lavender Tower, thinking we'd get some interesting stuff on the way up. Instead, I'm just getting a rather harsh lesson on why it's a good thing that there wasn't a ghost type gym in this game. There's just painfully few ghosts to throw around, and our team doesn't have a whole lot of options against them. Hell, we've got more options in how to handle psychics, the ones that are infamously overpowered in this generation with no types that actually full-on counter them. Didn't even get to go to the floor above before I had to heal Garm there. Still, is it just me or is our Pooch doing a better job in here than Takanabori was? If anything, I'm actually glad that most of the trainers in this tower have only one Pokemon. Mostly because this seems to be the only location where there's literally no difference between a wild and a trainer battle. That's not enough to make me do any changes to how I'm keeping score of things, just something that I find strange and probably not in an intentional way. Of course, it's even more strange that I remember the Lavender Town theme pretty well, but not the theme for the tower where we spend most of our time in this town. Wish I knew why that's the case. What's going on is apparently I'm being ground down to a fine pace just trying to go to the rescue of an old man we've never met before and will not be a factor later on. And we're not being worn down in an entertaining way, assuming that kind of thing ever could be entertaining in a game like this. Another bout of paralysis? Bloody hell. Is there anything we have outside of just letting Neo do absolutely everything and rip through this tower on his own, without ever switching him out, that would let us get through this at a decent amount of time? I know. We have a high-grade Ghost Slayer on our team, and we could use him more here. I also know that I want to keep our team relatively close to one another's level, and Neo carrying the team here, while justified in terms of saving time, would leave him very lopsidedly our highest leveled Pokemon, at least for a good long while. The saddest part here is even the bits of dialogue that are just grunts and crazed noises is still on par with most of the forgettable crap trainers say to us over the rest of the game anyway. Though maybe that's just me being overly harsh again. It's honestly hard to tell after a certain point for me. Seriously, with how useless most of the pre-battle dialogue tends to be, various simplified grunts and groans aren't all that different from, "This should be fun," or, "Well, you look cute, so you're probably easy to beat, right?" Well, I doubt whatever fell out is gonna be some key item we need to get to the top floor. We already had that happen in the rocket base, which we needed to go to in order to actually make progress in this tower. Not that we see any item to pick up after that lady said something fell, and frankly can't find it in me to give a damn if it was a ghost or a hair or even a used damn tampon. I think we're close to finished with our climb here, so let's just finish it. Sorry, ma'am, we've come too far to be driven off now. Thankfully, the ghost of this Marowak doesn't have the same immunity to normal that a ghost type would. Considering how high level she is compared to the various trainers and wild Pokemon here, and the fact that this is a special encounter that we absolutely have to go through in order to make progress, I'm going to count this as something for the scorecard. And Kohaku takes down the ghost of a ground type, simply because said ground type didn't stick to using her ground type attack. I'm not even sure if I was banking on Kohaku getting that win, or if I just plain didn't give a damn now that he had something to hit after so many damn floors. Anyway, time to start dealing with the rockets. As tempting as it is to fall back and heal right now, the fact of the matter is that even after sending Marowak to our final resting place, we still have plenty of wild ghosts to deal with on the various floors of the tower. For some reason I was hoping that our actions would lead to the tower becoming at least a little less haunted, since it's supposed to be a major event in this game. Or at least one of the few major events that doesn't lead to us getting a gym badge. But no, the game designers probably wanted us to keep having the ability to capture Ghastlies and Cubones in the tower, so they didn't change the encounter rate at all once Marowak was dealt with. So in a sense, our actions had about as much impact on the world as it would if this was a massive multiplayer online game. Interestingly enough, the absolute first MMOs out there were actually released in 1996, about the same time as the first generation Pokemon games were released. Granted, MMOs didn't really start taking off until World of Warcraft popped up in 2004, but it felt like an interesting tidbit for now. And once again, I'm wondering when I'm finally going to get around to LPing the Warcraft series. That's been sitting on my to-do list since way back when I was LPing the StarCraft series. Yeah, definitely feels like it'd be better to have a healing move than something that might disable a random enemy attack. Little late to give up when you have no Pokemon left to send out. Not that we're in any way allowed to attack someone with Pokemon in any way once they themselves are out of Pokemon. Okay, apparently got a little lucky with the encounter rate that time. Still, at least we don't have to go far in order to go from the top floor to the healing box. Though now I can't help feeling annoyed that we never see any healing spots inside of a cave system. And it would have made traveling through Mount Moon and the Dark Cave a lot less excruciating. Though maybe it would be less excruciating if I was the type to actually use healing items in Pokemon games. I'm actually kind of curious, when I get to games in other role-player series, just how conservative I'll be with healing items in them. Is it going to be a case-by-case basis kind of thing? Or am I just hardwired to not want to use healing items until absolutely 100% forced to? And we're back to the top floor. Oh, you're kidding me. There's still a random encounter even all the way up here? Again, you'd think that'd be something I'd remember rather clearly. Ah, well, at least the sheer amount of fast-forwarding I've done means this clip is going to end up less than half an hour long with this bit of raw footage, so that's something. Well, seeing as how you consider a Marowak useless, I'm not sure how that discussion could come across as between adults outside of their age ranges. Especially when the first Pokemon you send out is one that a Marowak could easily take down if it had the sense to just use its Bone Club repeatedly. Granted, we beat Marowak's Ghost with Kohaku here, who's ill-equipped to deal with either a ground type or a ghost. Still, I feel like the point stands. Not that these rocket grunts would get much of any point, even if they could hear me explaining why they're wrong about this particular thing. Right. Too much to hope that the hypnosis would miss there. Word of advice. If the only offensive moves your psychic type has are physical, then you're probably not going to do so well against a physical badass. Oh, I'm sure the Pokemon Company agrees with you, especially considering some of their decisions over the years. Excuse me for thinking that there was plenty of creative potential in the series, though. It's potential that the game developers either didn't have the skill and imagination to grasp, or they were just never given the time to do it. It can be rather hard to tell in this instance. Darn, guess that's what we get for leaving just a small sliver of health left on that path. At least the confusion didn't do all that much to us that time. While maybe Kohaku should have taken that rat down, 61 wins on his part of the card feels pretty damn good for now. Though I suppose if I was more strict with my score system, then it'd just be 60. And I don't even want to know just how obscene the numbers would have looked like if I treated wild Pokemon as counting just as much as trainer rays, or especially important Pokemon. I'm pretty sure everyone on the team would have had triple digits at least by this point if that was the case. I also have this small worry when I go through one of these clips that I may miscount something on the scorecard somewhere. It doesn't really matter, it's just something arbitrary I've been doing for my own sake. Still, it might feel embarrassing later, or it might if I do more than just go, huh, could have sworn Marbleback had 56 as his score at this point in the game. and he's very likely to get 57 soon. But apparently, we'll see if Kohaku can get that one extra tally instead of Marble back just now. After all, Kohaku spent an annoying amount of time in this tower being, at best, just useful to take down an already badly wounded ghost. Right, that puts Kohaku in at 62 and the overall team score to 387. Sorry, already mentioned how ridiculous it is for the forgettable villain to say that to the hero. Speaking of ridiculous, was not expecting a random battle just before we spoke to Mr. Fuji. And maybe it says something about how late at night I was working on the script for this clip, but I just couldn't help thinking of any jokes I could have used using Mr. Fuji's name here. He's not a villain, so I can't really use any jokes that reference the pro wrestling manager of the WWF, Mr. Fuji. He hasn't really done anything that would be described as especially stubborn, so I can't really compare him to a mountain, and he doesn't have a volcanic temper either, so yeah, I got nothing for this guy. He's as forgettable as they come, despite being an important character in this game. Ah, thank you for teleporting us here. It would have been a pain in the ass to climb all the way down after all the crap we went through just to get up there. As for our Pokédex quest failing, I'm pretty sure a large percentage of players for Pokemon games don't even go for trying to complete the Pokédex. At the very least, I damn well know I'm not among the people who would go out of their way to try succeeding at filling out a Pokédex in any of the generations. Anyway, with that done, time to sell some crap, then save. Really wish I knew why it is that I somehow remembered this town being a lot more epic in terms of both atmosphere and the events in the tower. And now I'm worried that when we get to Sylph Tower, it'll be equally underwhelming to me in this LP, despite my memories claiming it was a standout moment in the game.